In the dirt bike world, there are plenty of legendary machines that belong in the Motorcycle Hall of Fame. On the flip side, however, there are a handful of notorious bikes that have, over the years, left riders shaking in their boots for all the wrong reasons. In my travels around the moto world, I've had what some might call the ill fortune of encountering quite a few of these nightmare-inducing rides. Thankfully, I've lived to tell the tale each time, so today we're counting down the worst and most dangerous dirt bikes ever built. These are bikes that earn their infamy either for their dodgy engineering, unpredictable handling, or their downright terrifying reputations. So strap yourselves in, grab a helmet, I think you'll need it, because in this video we are riding the 5 worst and most dangerous dirt bikes of all time. Number 5, the OG Widowmakers. The 1971 Suzuki TM400 Cyclone. To start us off, let's go back to the very early days of the sport, a time when, to be fair, most machines were pretty damn scary, especially from the point of view of a modern rider like me. There were a couple of machines that earned particularly nasty reputations during this time, and there is some debate as to which machine is the true Widowmaker of this era. There's the 1970 Yamaha RT1M, and there's the 1971 Suzuki TM400 Cyclone. Both are considered to be terribly dangerous machines, but for the purpose of this video we can only pick one to enter our Hall of Shame. And the bike receiving that honour from us will undoubtedly have to be the Suzuki TM400. And let me tell you why. The year was 1971, and it was a tumultuous time in the sport. It was the changing of the guard, so to speak, as the Japanese came in to take over and dominate the once formidable European brands. The Japanese initially started off this invasion with smaller capacity bikes like the Yamaha DT1 and the Suzuki TM250. But they were keen to break into the big bore market as soon as possible, and this is where the problems began. After all, with more power comes more responsibility. Both the Yamaha RT1M and the Suzuki Cyclone were the first big bore efforts from those brands, and they both caused many sleepless nights for their owners. After doing a lot of research into this topic and having actually ridden both of these machines, I can confidently say that the Suzuki is most certainly the most egregious of the two. It definitely caused a lot more pain for a lot more people. There was a lot of hype for the release of the TM400. The Suzuki marketing department had done an awesome job getting the booming MX scene excited for the release of the new bike. At this time, the Suzuki factory bikes were genuinely great as well, and with Roger Da Costa and Joel Robert on board, Suzuki were doing a lot of winning. And customers were almost led to believe that the Cyclone would be a legit replica of Da Costa's championship winning bike. But that was far, far from the truth. Sure, they looked pretty factory and they were damn fast for the time. 40 horsepower was a lot for a bike with twin shocks and drum brakes. But the Cyclone was 60 pounds heavier than the factory version, which also had a stronger frame and titanium components. It quickly became apparent after release that Suzuki's first mass production big bore dirt bike was built on a tight budget, and that showed on track.
It's the devil.
Due to an issue with the flywheel being too light and the fact that the new electronic ignition system was just a bit rubbish, power delivery on the Cyclone was like a light switch, either on or off. which was very hard to tame for most of the hobby riders that bought the bike. Handling was awful as well. The frame would flex and then release that energy like a spring, sending the bike off in all sorts of unexpected directions. It was that bad that you could actually go out and buy a new frame from an aftermarket company, which is just wild to me. The suspension was poor even by early 70s standards. It just wasn't up to handling all of that power. The paper air filter was useless, and those terrible little foot pegs were downright dangerous. On screen now are some quotes I found from bike testers back in the 1970s. They weren't impressed. And I can tell you now that the Cyclone definitely did not get better with age. There's not enough nostalgia in the world to make this thing an enjoyable ride. This is what Sean and I had to say after our encounter with the Orange Terror. What were your first impressions, Sean?
When we first started it, and, you know, we bumped it, it literally, when it fired into life and it pinged out the exhaust, I was like, we've just started the devil. There's a couple of things I noticed. A, I need some new kidneys, right?
Yeah.
And B, I can see why they wore kidney belts,
Yeah.
because the travel of suspension is like zero.
Yeah. But I actually didn't even notice the foot pegs. There was so many other things that I was worried about. The foot pegs was down at the bottom of my list of worries. The first worry, the main worry I had was stopping. Obviously he's got these drum brakes on there, which are going to be subpar by our modern standards anyway, but casing on that side of the rear brake is huge, and it just covers the rear brake pedal. Obviously it's such an old bike and the geometry on it is so weird. Obviously it's got like that massive bench seat. We're used to getting up to like here in the corners. So you're like sliding up the seat, and then let's call it the pinch, shall we? The pinch between the seat and the tank on the old danglies. You're like, oh Jesus, wow. That wasn't the most enjoyable thing.
It surprised me. It was a lot faster than I expected it to be. The gears were so long.
Really long, yeah.
And I think it felt like that was taming it slightly. It just sounded so aggressive. It was the hardest bike I've ever ridden, as in like it was so hard to understand what it was doing and how I could use the power and make it turn and do everything. You know, it did take a while. When it started swapping, then you could feel, you know, the flex of everything, where there was a few times where I was like, whoo. That for me, that was the worst motocross bike I've ever ridden.
Thankfully, motocross bikes have gotten a lot better since 1971. Number 4, the 1000cc Super Dirt Bike. The Cyclone might have been a scary bike to try and tame, but the most scared I've ever been at the track was watching my friend Nev Bradshaw take this monster for a spin. This is a custom GSXR 1000 dirt bike built by our mate Chris Thorpe, and yes, it's as bonkers and as ridiculous as it sounds. This bike and this project reminds me of that quote from Jurassic Park. They were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. It's a Suzuki GSXR 1000 motor wedged inside a KTM 690 Enduro chassis. It was built with the intention of doing some light off-road, but not really with the intention of hitting the track and sending the jumps. With 150 bhp, Nev had so much power at his fingertips. All it would take was one mistake, one slip, a little bit of whiskey throttle, and it would all end in tears. Like I said, I've never been so scared making one of our videos.
insane, dude. That is insane. The power, like I've only gone half throttle.
Yeah.
Like the distance you cover is like unreal. Like everything comes at you so fast, and when the power comes in, I've actually feel like I got like tendonitis in my elbow, and I was wondering why. And it's literally because you got to hold on so tight when the power comes in. It's actually mind blowing. You can't even slow down enough for the jumps. Like it's crazy. Like once the power band comes in and the bike's going forward, yeah, it's something else, man. Like actually like mind blowing power. You know, like people say about the 500s being fast, but you know I can ride a 500 like a 125 almost now, like wide open. That thing, like I've never really been scared on a motorbike, and I can actually say I'm scared of that. Like when that power comes in, you got to be like holding with your knees, like elbows locked in, and looking up to see what's coming. You know, it's something I've never, you know, in the 32 years or 33 years I've been riding motorbikes, I've never ever experienced anything like that before.
Thankfully, Nev is a pro and he managed to tame the beast and he survived the ride. But I've got no doubt that this is the scariest shed-built dirt bike in the world.
Yeah, you could have some big Larry loop outs if you weren't careful on that thing.
Our channel is powered by Pewterline. We wouldn't be able to go on these adventures to find these crazy machines without their support. So be sure to check out Pewterline next time you need to restock on your essentials. They've got you covered for your motorcycle oils, lubricants, cleaning products, and a lot more. Head over to their website, put your bike model into the search bar, and they'll bring up all of the products they recommend you need for your ride. As always, a huge thanks goes to Pewterline. Number 3, the King's Nightmare, the 1997 Honda CR250. So that's 2 dangerous bikes so far. I think it's now time to look at a machine that's less terrifying, more terrible. The 1997 Honda CR250 might just have one of the worst reputations in motocross history, and it's mainly thanks to one man. In the mid-90s, Honda were at the top of the sport, and they'd been there for a long time. In Europe, they'd won 13 World Championships in 16 years, and over in the States, they were on an incredible run of 9 straight 250cc Supercross Championships, of which Jeremy McGrath had won 4. In 1996, McGrath almost completed the perfect Supercross season, winning 14 out of 15 main events on board his CR250. Together, MC and Honda were almost unstoppable. As a team, they was an irresistible force of unprecedented success. That was the case until the 1996 off-season anyway. McGrath was in the midst of contract negotiations for the 97 season when testing began on the radical new aluminium-framed CR250, and after just a few rides, negotiations completely fell apart. The quality and performance of the new bike just wasn't good enough for the king of Supercross. The bike was so bad in MC's opinion that he decided not to re-sign with factory Honda, the mega giants of the sport, but instead decided to go off and set up his own deal on board a Suzuki. Looking at these quotes from a fairly recent podcast, it's safe to assume that Jeremy really didn't like the direction that Honda had gone. I guess in his eyes, Honda were trying to fix something that wasn't broken. I mean, the 96 machine was literally almost perfect for him. So what actually happened? Well, Honda decided to innovate, and the King was a casualty of that innovation. At the time, all motocross bikes used steel chassis. It was the norm, it's what riders knew, it's what they liked. But Honda wanted to push the boundaries and develop their off-road machines. So in 1997, they unveiled the first proper production bike with an aluminium frame. There were also some motor updates and some other upgrades around the bike, but the new Ali chassis caught all of the attention for all the wrong reasons. It was super stiff, especially compared to the steel frame bikes of the time. Apparently, early on in development, test riders did have a good setup with a bit more flex in the frame, but according to the stories, Honda got spooked about potential frame cracking and added more and more material until we got the super stiff frame that most riders despised. The suspension guys then struggled to find a setup that worked well in conjunction with this new stiffer frame. And this came together to create a bike that was super difficult to handle. Naturally, before McGrath's unceremonious exit from Honda, there was a lot of hype and excitement for this revolutionary new CR250. So when they did land in showrooms and started flying out the doors, there were a lot of disappointed Honda owners at the track. I actually bought myself a 97 CR250 last year to find out for myself just how bad they really were, and we'll get into that in a second. But regardless of our opinions today, it's safe to say that the CR250 from 1997 was for sure one of the most disappointing dirt bikes ever released. Here we see pro test rider Ed Bradley taking my 97 CR250 for a spin so he can compare it against modern bikes and to the previous generation steel frame CR250 as well. If I'm being honest, Ed didn't actually get much time on the bike because we did have some gearbox issues with this bike. It's probably the most troublesome machine we've ever purchased. But this is what Ed had to say about the bike. And what were your thoughts going through your head? Because obviously this got a pretty bad rap back in the day.
It did, and my memories of riding them were it was a very harsh and very stiff bike. Quite surprising when we got on it this time because engine-wise, a lot less bottom end. It was a very harsh hit in the middle. Bit of harshness on the braking bumps. The braking bumps weren't massive out there, but it was just enough to notice that it was that harsh feeling was there.
Yeah. But it wasn't as shocking maybe as you remembered it being.
No, absolutely. Back in the day, in the 90s, when you're racing, there is a night and day difference between the comfort and the flexibility in the steel frame to the aluminium frame being so much more direct. At the time, that was a huge difference in how the bike performed. Whereas now, if you ride the 97 and compared to a modern bike, then the feeling is actually a lot closer to that than you would be the 95, 96 Hondas.
Combining your knowledge from back in the day and what you've experienced today, can you see why McGrath wanted to get off this bike after he tested it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like I said, it's night and day. The difference between the steel chassis and the aluminium one, it really is night and day, and it's so much stiffer than the previous model.
So when we rode the 97 CR250, we were pleasantly surprised. The bike had aged well and it performed way better than we thought it would. But there's no denying that this bike is one of the most widely condemned machines in motocross history. It's got a terrible reputation and that ain't changing anytime soon. Number 2, the company killer, the Cannondale MX400. The breakup between MC and Honda might have hurt Big Red in the short term. There was a small championship drought in the years afterwards, but I think it's safe to say that Honda were able to recover fairly healthily. I don't think there's a bike so bad that it could sink a giant like Honda. But it turns out there is a bike so bad it could kill a company like Cannondale. If you Google worst dirt bike of all time, I reckon that the Cannondale MX400 from 2001 will be the top answer. This machine, which was produced by a bicycle company at the turn of the millennium, lives on in infamy for all the wrong reasons. We managed to track one down a couple of years ago to find out why they're thought of so poorly. Cannondale were obsessed with innovation. They were famous in the cycle world for their different and quirky ideas, and I guess as the 90s came to a close, they were looking to expand their business into new areas. The Yamaha YZ400 was a direct inspiration for Cannondale. They saw how Yamaha were developing the sport of motocross with the introduction of the 4-stroke, and they wanted to get in on that act. But it was this constant quest for innovation that was ultimately their downfall. When Cannondale announced their intentions to join the dirt bike world, there was a lot of excitement. They'd be the first new manufacturer to join the sport in 25 years. But that hype and excitement did die down a little bit. It took 3 long years from announcement before bikes actually hit the showroom floor. And in that time, the budget for the project ballooned massively. Initially, they estimated that it would cost about $20 million to design and produce a brand new motorcycle from the ground up. But in the end, that number ended up being more like $80 million. And that's because they were being very ambitious. They wanted to push the envelope and they didn't want to copy what was already out there. Essentially, they were trying to reinvent the wheel. The result was a bike that was way ahead of its time with a reverse cylinder 4-stroke motor, electronic fuel injection and an electric start. It all sounded very exotic and high-end, but in reality, in 2001, the MX400 was just a bit weird and very temperamental. There were quite a few features on the bike that were baffling, and we'll get to those in a second. But the first sign that Cannondale maybe hadn't done their due diligence thoroughly enough was that the MX400 utilised a frame that was directly inspired by the 1997 CR250, which we know wasn't very popular whatsoever. The MX400 was packed full of innovative features which we had never seen before. But in reality, that meant that they hadn't been tried and tested for hardcore dirt bike use. Originally, Cannondale were working with a Husqvarna engine manufacturer, but that relationship disintegrated and they decided instead to go with their own design built by a NASCAR outfit in North Carolina. They went for a backwards engine, a backwards cylinder, which we see now in modern Yamahas. The exhaust pipe came straight out of the back of the cylinder, so the header pipe was very short, which doesn't result in great power, especially compared to the rivals of the time. Another interesting design choice was the air filter placement. It's here behind the front number board, and the intake actually goes through the frame. It's interesting and it's different. The air filter is right there, and there's a hole in the frame to allow the air through. But that hole just simply wasn't big enough to allow enough air to let the bike breathe. So they added a second air box underneath the seat here. So when you're done riding, there's actually 2 air filters you've got to clean. And to clean this second air filter, you've actually got to take the rad shrouds off, the seat off, the tank off. It's a right faff to get done. 2 more innovations that the Cannondale MX400 featured was the EFI fuel injection and the electric start. Completely revolutionary for the time back in 2001. The EFI just simply wasn't good enough. It was temperamental, it was weird, people couldn't get their heads around it. The electric start was temperamental and unreliable. When the bike was hot, it just wouldn't work out on track. And the bike would cut out regularly at low RPM. And that's because of the dodgy fueling system in there. You can see down here, the starter motor is packed in there, which means that they've had to do this weird frame design. This actually bolts on and off to try and make working on the bike easier. But just in general, the Cannondale MX400 wasn't very easy to work on, wasn't very nice to work on. And that's just one of the reasons why people did not enjoy owning this machine. So the design was ambitious and quirky, but how did it actually perform on track? Oh, Jesus Christ. To be fair, I actually quite enjoyed my time on board the Cannondale. I thought that it handled well and would go wherever I wanted it to. It sounded pretty wild, like a modern day Yamaha or Triumph, but it was heavy. It's about 20 pounds heavier than the other 4-strokes of the era. And to be brutally honest, it was slow, like seriously slow for an open class bike. Despite its flaws, like I said, the bike was actually pretty enjoyable to spin a few laps on. But I think owning it and trying to race it would be a different story. I think that would be pretty painful, for sure. Upon arrival in 2001, the Cannondale MX400 just didn't live up to the hype, and it ultimately sunk an empire. A scathing review in Motocross Action was essentially the final nail in the coffin for Cannondale's dirt bike project. The bikes did not sell well, and the stock price of the company plummeted by 83%. By 2003, the company was bankrupt. The motocross project was a disastrous endeavour that killed the company as it was known. And that's the reason why the MX400 is considered to be one of the most doomed dirt bikes of all times. A massive thank you goes to 24MX for supporting the channel. Head over to their website for great deals on a whole load of products. They've got you covered for hard parts, accessories, even riding gear. You can get things like bike stands, the tool chests which you see over there, even O'Neill you can get on the 24MX website. There's links and more information in the description down below. Number 1, the Honda ATC 250R. So the MX400 is the only bike to kill a company, but there's only one machine so dangerous and so bad that it was ultimately banned and culled by the US government, and that machine is of course the Honda ATC three-wheelers. Three-wheeled all-terrain vehicles were a massive craze in the 70s and 80s. Reportedly, over 500,000 of these things were sold in just a 3-year period. But if you're a motorcycle rider, which I'm sure most of you guys watching will be, you'll know that a bike with 3 wheels in this configuration will be as sketchy as hell to ride. And that's exactly what these things were. Sure, if you knew how to do it, you could have some serious fun on an ATC. The problem was that most people taking these things for a spin definitely did not know how to ride them properly. In the main, they were recreation vehicles that families used to explore the outdoors. So you had mums, dads, kids, grannies and granddads all ripping around on these three-wheelers. But as time went on, the engines got bigger, the bikes got faster, and the option was there to buy full-blown race-ready machines like the monstrous ATC 250R. According to reports from the 80s, 7,000 people per month were injured riding all-terrain vehicles, with 900 deaths in just 5 years. And according to the reports, a lot of kids were involved in those accidents. In 1987, the American Academy of Pediatrics proposed a ban on ATVs. And at the same time, manufacturers like Honda were facing loads of lawsuits with billions of dollars at risk. So ultimately, Honda made a deal with the US Consumer Safety Commission, and they agreed to cease production of all three-wheeled machines for 10 years. And they also had to fund a $100 million ATV safety campaign. Dealers were also instructed to destroy any ATC inventory they had left over. There's certainly no other machine in history that caused as much fuss and as much hysteria as the Honda ATC. So I just had to find out what all the commotion was about. Earlier this year, I hooked up with Club ATC to find out the answers.
Right, so now I'm going to go on the ATC 250R from 1985. This is the ultimate weapon. 85, isn't it? 85.
One down, rest up.
The ultimate weapon in the freewheel world.
There you go.
Alright,
One down.
wish me luck. I'll try to do it again. Oh, that's a bit different. I'm riding an ATC! Yeah! Wow! That's going everywhere, wherever it wanted to! Wow! Oh, I did not mean to do that! Woo! Oh my god, that's terrifying! It just feels like a fight. Riding a three-wheeler just feels like you're in a fight the whole time. You're trying to make it do something it doesn't want to do. And that's going a straight line.
So once I finished my ride on board the ATC 250R, I gave it back to the owner so he could go for a head-to-head battle against this dude here on the Yamaha Tri-Z. These guys were going to show me how to ride these machines properly. And as you can see, they're already ripping, having loads of fun out there. But you're about to find out for yourselves why I ranked this machine, the ATC 250R, as the most dangerous dirt bike ever made. You're about to see exactly why I've decided to put this bike at the top of the list. See the boys absolutely ripping up the field here, having the time of their lives on board there. three-wheelers. This is what these things were made for. We've got two absolute icons of 80s off-road here, the Tri-Z and the ATC 250R. Sliding it around the corners. But the problem about playing with monsters is they bite back. So we just spent one afternoon playing with an ATC and we caught one of the biggest high sides we've ever seen here on 999 Laser. And that is why I've ranked the ATC at the top of my list today. We're always on the hunt for interesting, rare and unique motorcycles. So if there's a machine that you think we should investigate, definitely drop a suggestion in the comments down below.
Stand still, just stand still. Stand still. Yeah, just get your breath back.
Even better, if you own one and you want us to come check it out, please do drop me a message on Instagram at 999laser. So there we have our picks for the 5 worst and most dangerous dirt bikes we've encountered on our travels. But did I miss something? Have I left anything out? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. As always guys, my name's Max, you've been watching 999 Laser. Until next time, I'll see you at the track.